Hello, everybody, and welcome to another trip report by yours truly, Mad Mike. So this is my first video of this style. I just got a new headset today, and I'd like to kind of make photo montages with the audio in the background for a change for some of my videos. I guess this is going to be the first one of its kind. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, this video is going to be about one of my experiences with DMT, or dimethyltryptamine for the more technical folk. So, I've had many experiences with DMT. Um, this story in particular that I want to share is probably one of my more intense trips. But before I get into that, I'd like to give a little bit of background on DMT. So, DMT is a substance that can be taken orally. It can be taken intravenously. Don't recommend it. Never done it. Probably never will. Um, but as most commonly, it is smoked. So, backing up a second, when you take it orally, you need a monoamine oxidase inhibitor in your system in order for it to work. The reason is because DMT closely mimics the serotonin molecule, that is one of our neurotransmitters, and its mechanism of action is it is a 5-HT2A serotonergic receptor agonist. And when an MAOI, a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, is in your system, it allows serotonin to be basically absorbed freely into the bloodstream because the monoamine oxidase inhibitor blocks the enzyme monoamine oxidase. So this enzyme is normally responsible for breaking down excess serotonin. That's why MAOIs are very popular. Well, not so much anymore, but they used to be popular antidepressants because it would allow your body to have more of its serotonin available instead of being broken down quickly. Um, but this also works for DMT. It allows it to absorb into your bloodstream without being digested. So this is how things like ayahuasca or pharmawaska, psilowaska, those types of things, that's how they work. But this video is going to be focused on smoking the DMT. Now, when I smoke DMT, I typically smoke it out of either a meth pipe or more commonly, I use my dab rig. I feel quite dirty using a meth pipe to smoke it because it is such a introspective, sacred compound. To associate it with a drug like meth feels just wrong. Um, so typically, I will smoke about, 30 to 50 milligrams of it in order to achieve what they call the breakthrough experience. Now, in this particular trip report, I want to talk about a time that I did much more than that, actually. I ended up doing probably about 80 milligrams of dimethyltryptamine within, this was spread out between two hits. This experience is going to talk about how DMT sort of humbled me, and made me feel, like less of a big shot when it comes to drugs, especially. So without any further ado, I'm going to get right into it. So basically, over the summer, I was very intrigued by DMT, and I ended up extracting a decent amount, to use. This wasn't the first time I had done DMT, but this is the first time I had extracted it. And DMT being a somewhat, rare substance, it is somewhat popular too. If you ever listen to Joe Rogan, I'm sure you know all about DMT. But it's sort of like hyped up, I guess now in like pop culture. It's kind of getting trendy. So a lot of people they want to try it, yet they don't really know how to get it or how to extract it. But I was able to extract some, and I brought it over to one of my friends' houses. And there was a group of about four of us there at the time. And I kind of pulled out the DMT and said, "Hey guys, you guys want to do DMT?" And everybody was so down because everybody was so excited about it. And so I first began by trying a little bit myself just to show everybody that, it's all right. So I did a little bit. I didn't do too much. I caught the kind of first, wave feeling of it. I felt, sort of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's what a little bit of DMT will do. It doesn't really, you do have to take quite a large hit in order to achieve a breakthrough experience, if not multiple hits. Um, Mostly, most likely you're going to have to take multiple hits in order to achieve a breakthrough experience. So I did a small hit, and after this, I was all right, and I passed it around. I let everybody do a little bit bigger of a hit than I did, and a couple of my friends, they had pretty intense experiences. And before long, it kind of came back around to me, and I sort of felt like a big shot because I felt like I needed to prove that I could handle it more than everybody else. Because keep in mind, a few of my friends did have quite intense experiences, and they were like, "Man, that's so intense." So I was basically like, "All right, well, hold my beer. I'm gonna take a huge hit." And that's what I ended up doing, except it was actually two very huge hits, which was a pretty big mistake. It was quite a lot of DMT at the end of the day. So I had one of my friends heat up my dab rig for me while I scooped out the desired amount of DMT, which was a lot. And after he heated it up, I basically dumped the first scoop of DMT into the nail, and I took this all in one hit. Held it in, held it in, held it in, ghosted it until no smoke came out. And that's really what you want to do when you smoke DMT. Just as a side note, you definitely want to hold it in for as long as you can, so as much absorbs as possible. So I do this, and the first hit was very large. It got me to the point where I had the ringing in my ears, which is something that if you have never done DMT before, it's very common. People report a loud ringing in their ears, a loud ringing, buzzing sensation. It's kind of like bzzz, and you feel like you're kind of going to be sucked away at any moment. But whether I was going to be sucked away by this hit or not, I never got to find out because I did the next large hit, quite quickly after I had exhaled. I didn't really exhale anything, but after I was finished with the first hit. So I take the second large hit, and after that, I was just gone. I was completely gone. The only thing I really remember at this point was seeing black in front of me. I just the buzzing kind of reached just an ear splitting volume. It was so loud it basically overcame everything. It was just bzzz, that's all I could hear. And then it stopped. It was just like bzzz, and I kind of just felt like all the air had been sucked from my surroundings. Keep in mind we were outside. We were actually by one of my friend's pools, um sitting on a picnic table. And I see black everywhere. Was black. The pool was gone, the house was gone, and this was super intense. I felt like a drifting soul kind of just out in the middle out in the middle of this plane, in the astral plane, I guess you could say. And after a minute, I don't know if it was a minute, I don't know if it was a few seconds, I pretty much lost track of all time at this point. Things kind of started taking shape again. The house started taking shape slowly. It was like one-dimensional lines kind of started forming together, started forming everything back together. And when I was able to kind of make out the world, it appeared very differently than what the world normally appears. It was similar to the peak of a very, very high dose of mushrooms. Okay, I'm talking like upwards of 7 grams here. I mean, the visuals on DMT are absolutely breathtaking, and they're actually even more so when you close your eyes. But during this particular experience, I didn't end up closing my eyes. So, everything's waving, everything's kind of like breaking down and putting itself back together. Um, it's pretty typical DMT stuff. The one thing about this trip that really, really got me though was I looked up at the sky. There's a very large space, like a large area of sky between these tall pine trees in my friend's yard. And I looked up at that sky, and a rift seemed to open up. And out of it poured what looked like these elves. You know, if you ever listen to Terrence McKenna's take on DMT experiences, he always talks about seeing machine elves, and I really truly feel like I saw them during this trip. They came out of this rift in the sky, and they were all linking arms. You know, it's sort of like monkeys in a barrel, if that makes sense. Or if you guys know those chains that people make out of paper where you stack paper or fold paper a certain way and then you cut it a certain way, and then when you unravel it, it's a chain of either, you know, people or hearts or whatever shape you'd like to make. That's how it was with these elves. They all seemed to be linking arms or connected in one way, and as they were coming out of this rift, it looked like, you know, I could see more and more of them kind of plastered over everything else that I was seeing. It was almost like I was seeing through the fabric of reality, and this is what reality truly was made up of, was these elves linking arms. And I remember, I guess it was at this point that one of my friends kind of started nervously laughing because I probably looked like I was so out of it. I mean, I was just gone, you know? So he started nervously laughing, and his laughter resonated. And it literally felt, it was, you know, it's kind of started out like a giggle. It was like, "Huh," and then it turned into like a kind of a deep, almost demonic sounding laugh. It was like, "Huh, ho, 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 ho," and it resonated. And this really freaked me out. It really, I felt like the universe was laughing at me, and kind of like a voice in my head was telling me, like, this is what you get for being a big shot, for taking too much, for trying to show off with this sacred substance. This is not a toy. This is not like something to use for bragging rights. And that's really how I felt. That's really the message that it delivered me, and I heard it loud and clear. And man, that was pretty scary. That was that was one of my more intense DMT trips for sure. And you know, after a while, like with DMT, the trip comes as quickly as it goes, and it did go very quickly, and it just sort of feels like it's slipping out of your fingers when it leaves. And before long, it was gone, and I was extremely sober, and all my friends were asking me how it was because they knew I did a shit ton. And you know, I couldn't really talk for a minute. I was so kind of taken aback by the experience, but um yeah, that's my story about N-dimethyltryptamine. I have plenty more stories about DMT. I do it quite frequently, so if you guys enjoyed this story, I would be more than happy to upload another story about DMT. If you guys have experience with DMT, I'd love for you guys to share them in the comments. And with that, Mad Mike is out.